Living alone in the wilderness offers a serene solitude, but lately, that solitude has been tainted by an unnerving presence. I first noticed it a month ago, a shadow that moved against the natural sway of the forest, always at the edge of my vision. It wasn't long before the sound started, whispers mimicking the wind, footsteps where there should be none, and distant howls that didn't belong to any animal I knew. Last night, the boundary between it and me thinned to a mere whisper. As I locked my cabin's doors and windows, the air grew thick, charged with a palpable dread. The moon, full and accusatory, illuminated shapes that moved with an unsettling purpose. I could hear it then, just outside, a soft, mocking echo of my movements within the cabin, as if it were learning, adapting. It wasn't just watching anymore. It was studying me, learning my fears. The night was alive with its presence, and sleep became a distant hope. In a desperate bid for reassurance, I reached out to the local sheriff, a voice of reason in my growing hysteria. His words were a cold comfort. "It's probably just a coyote, ma'am. They can get curious." But curiosity didn't explain the way my own voice called to me from the shadows, tempting me outside. I've decided to leave, to seek the anonymous safety of crowded streets and locked apartments. Yet, as I pack my belongings, I can't shake the feeling of eyes upon me, nor can I silence the whisper of my name on the wind. The wilderness may relinquish its claim on me, but I fear what walks within it has marked me as its own, a lingering shadow in my life that may never fully recede. In the vast, desolate expanse of the American Southwest, where the horizon stretches endlessly and the sky melds with the sun-baked earth, I found my sanctuary. A solitary, weathered cabin, miles away from the nearest hint of civilization, became my home. It was here, in the embrace of solitude, that I sought peace away from the chaos of the world. My days fell into a simple rhythm of survival, tending to my garden, repairing the cabin, and making the occasional journey to town for supplies. But the tranquility of my isolated existence began to unravel with eerie occurrences, whispers in the wind, shadows moving against the logic of light, and an unsettling sensation of being watched started to haunt my days and nights. One evening, as the sun set, casting the sky in a blaze of orange and red, I noticed a figure standing at the forest's edge. It was too distant to see clearly, but its presence sent a chill down my spine. I tried to convince myself it was just a lost hiker or a neighbor, but the figure's nightly appearances, always at the same spot, ignited a fear within me. I had heard the townsfolk whisper about skinwalkers, ancient beings with the power to mimic any creature they killed. Being a logical person, I initially dismissed these tales as superstitions. However, the mysterious figure's persistence and the unexplainable events that followed started to chip away at my skepticism. Compelled by a mixture of fear and defiance, I decided to confront the figure one night. With nothing but a flashlight and my resolve, I ventured towards the forest. As I neared the usual spot, the figure was gone. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. A chilling growl echoed from behind, and I turned to face not a man, but a creature, its eyes gleaming with malice. I ran, the creature's footsteps thundering behind me. Branches tore at my skin, and the growls grew closer. In a desperate sprint, I emerged into a clearing. Miraculously, the creature stopped at the forest's edge, as if an unseen force held it back. It stared into my eyes, before retreating into the darkness. That encounter left me shaken. My once cherished isolation now felt like a prison. I realized that an ancient, malevolent force had marked me, claiming the wilderness as its domain. My home no longer offered safety, but had become a trap. In the days that followed, I fortified my home. But the nights were tormented by the sounds of the creature prowling outside and the constant feeling of being watched. The psychological torment was unbearable, and I knew I couldn't endure it forever. Determined to escape, I worked tirelessly, saving every penny for one goal: to leave this cursed land behind. After months of toil, I had enough to start anew. With my belongings packed, I locked the cabin for the last time and drove away at dawn. I didn't look back. Though the road ahead was uncertain, the fear that had once consumed me began to fade. I was headed to a new city, a new life, away from the shadows that had haunted me. As the cabin faded from view, a howl echoed in the distance, a haunting reminder of the darkness I had escaped. But my spirit remained unbroken. I had survived the Skinwalker's terror, and I was determined to thrive, no matter where my journey took me. In the heart of the dense forest, where whispers of ancient lore dance with the wind, I walked, a skeptic of tales too wild for the logical mind. Skinwalkers, they said, beings of eerie transformation, prowling the night. Laughable, I thought, a myth to scare the gullible. But as dusk cloaked the sky in its dark mantle, a chill not born of the cold seeped into my bones. There, in the clearing, it stood, a creature of nightmares, eyes burning with an otherworldly glow, its form shifting, grotesque yet mesmerizing. Fear, raw and potent, gripped me as I realized the truth of those tales. The creature, sensing my presence, turned its gaze upon me, a silent challenge, a predator eyeing its prey. Every instinct screamed to flee, to escape the horror before me. With a heart pounding like thunder, I ran, the sound of my own breaths and the creature's eerie howls filling the night. Branches tore at my skin, roots threatened to trip me, yet fear lent me speed. I dared not look back, for the fear of seeing it right behind, its form shifting with each shadow, was too terrifying to contemplate. By some miracle, I broke free from the forest's grasp, the creature's cries fading into the night. Safe in my own bed, the ordeal seemed a nightmare, yet the scars on my flesh and the terror etched in my heart knew the truth. Skinwalkers were real, and I had narrowly escaped their clutches. The skeptic in me died that night, replaced by a believer of the world's hidden horrors. In the quiet town where I grew up, nestled between rolling hills and whispering woods, legends of skinwalkers were as common as the bread we baked. I married my high school sweetheart, Alex, a man whose laughter could light up the darkest of rooms. We were skeptics, the modern type, who believed more in science than in the shadows that danced in the corners of our tales. That was until the night the shadows danced a little too close to home. We decided to celebrate our 5th anniversary with a camping trip in the woods that bordered our town, a nod to our adventurous spirits. The night was a symphony of crickets and rustling leaves, and we were its lone audience, wrapped in the warmth of our love and the campfire's glow. It was perfect until a chilling howl shattered the tranquility, a sound neither of us could place in the repertoire of the forest's nocturnal creatures. Alex joked about it, teasing that perhaps the skinwalkers were coming for us, his laughter dancing in the air. I smiled, but unease curled in my stomach, an instinctual warning. We decided to retreat to our tent, dismissing the unease as the product of too many ghost stories. The night grew eerier, the woods too silent, as if holding its breath. Then, something moved outside our tent, subtle yet unmistakably deliberate. Alex went out to check, his bravery a constant that I admired. Minutes ticked by, each one stretching longer than the last, until the silence was broken by a scream that curdled my blood. It wasn't human, nor animal, but a horrific amalgam of both. Frozen in terror, I waited for Alex to return, but he never did. Venturing outside, the campsite was bathed in moonlight, serene and untouched except for Alex's absence. Panic set in, a frantic, pulsating fear. I called out, my voice swallowed by the woods. The response was a low, guttural growl, not far from the tent. My heart stopped as I turned to see a creature, humanoid but grotesquely altered, its eyes holding a glimmer of familiarity that tore through me. Alex's eyes, or what they had become. The realization hit me with a visceral shock. The Skinwalker had taken him, consumed him, leaving behind a twisted echo. I ran. The forest blurred into a nightmarish streak of shadows and threats. Every sound was Alex's voice, twisted by the creature's throat, calling me back. The rational part of my mind screamed that it was impossible, but the terror was all too real. By some stroke of luck, or perhaps mercy from the universe, I emerged from the woods, the break of dawn a harsh contrast to the nightmare I had escaped. The police found no trace of Alex, nor any evidence of the horror I described. The town whispered about the tragedy, some with sympathy, others with veiled suspicion. But I knew the truth of what lurked in those woods, a truth too horrific to be believed. I live with the memory of that night, of the love I lost to a legend I never believed in. The Skinwalker didn't just consume Alex, it devoured our future, leaving me with a void no amount of daylight can fill. My skepticism died in those woods, alongside the man I loved, leaving me with a haunting knowledge. Some legends are far too real, and some horrors are too close to home. It was a summer of dares and whispered secrets, of the invincibility that only comes with youth. We were a band of 5, bound by the thrill of adventure and the hunger for stories that would outlast the season's heat. Our latest challenge, the old Henderson property, a sprawl of untamed woods rumored to harbor more than just the scars of its past. Legends of skinwalkers whispered through our town, tales of creatures that wore human skins as easily as shadows melded with the night. We laughed at the stories, armed with the skepticism of those who have never faced the unknown head-on. The Henderson Woods were a tangle of mystery and danger, a place where the sun hesitated to tread. We ventured in with the bravado of those too young to recognize their own mortality. The deeper we went, the quieter the forest became, as if the very earth held its breath in anticipation. It was Mia who found it first, a clearing that shouldn't have been, where the trees recoiled, leaving a space that felt both sacred and cursed. In the center, a structure made of bones and earth, grotesquely beautiful and unmistakably a nest. We froze, the reality of our folly settling in. The air thickened, charged with a primal energy that whispered of ancient rites and transformations. We should have left then, but curiosity is a powerful lure. We circled the nest, peering into the darkness of its open maw. That's when we felt it, the shift in the air, the sensation of being watched by eyes we couldn't see but felt, nevertheless. A low growl, barely audible over the pounding of our hearts, vibrated through the clearing. Panic set in, a wild, uncontrolled fear that seized our limbs and set us sprinting back through the woods, the imagined sound of pursuit dogging our every step. Branches that had once seemed benign now clawed at us, as if trying to hold us back, to deliver us into the waiting embrace of whatever had made that nest. We emerged from the woods gasping, our bodies marked by the forest's claim, but alive. Alive and unclaimed by the skinwalkers we now believed in with a fervor born of fear. We spoke little of it afterward, each of us carrying the weight of that day in our own way. The skepticism that had once colored our view of the world was gone, replaced by a respect for the legends that had been passed down through generations. The nest remained undisturbed, a monument to the unseen that walk among us, a reminder of our escape from a fate too horrific to contemplate. We had ventured into the realm of legends and emerged unscathed, but not unchanged. The shadows held different shapes now, and the night whispered with voices we had learned to heed. Our summer of dares ended in the recognition that some things are better left undiscovered, and some thresholds are meant to remain uncrossed.